But Americans are aware. We're committed to pushing back. We need to stop this nonsense. Our United States Constitution was not written to be shredded in times of crisis.
Welcome to the People's Convention. What a great start. What a great weekend we are looking forward to. And I love that it is the People's Convention, because really that's what this country is about. Those three words that set us apart from every other nation in history: we the people. And I want to talk to you about that today, because there'll be a lot of great ideas that we discuss, and ideas matter. We certainly have the ideas that can restore this nation, that can make America a shining city on a hill again, or as a lot of people like to say, make America great again. But it's not the ideas alone that get the job done. Let me put it this way. Our Constitution has some amazing ideas in it. The idea that our rights come from God, not from a king or a dictator or a government. The idea of limited government and personal responsibility. But those ideas would just be in a textbook if it were not for 56 people who decided to sign their names on a Declaration of Independence and said, we're going to pledge our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor, and the thousands and thousands of names not known to history in that generation and generations since, who have fought for those principles and made sure that they have endured to the next generation. And so ideas matter, but I want to talk to you a moment about the people, because the people matter. I want to talk to you about the kind of people that make a difference, because it's not just the ideas, but it's the people with the courage to make sure those ideas happen. Let me tell you, I've been to a number of these events. I'm sure a number of you have, and it's sad. But what happens is we have these wonderful mountaintop experience. We get excited about the potential of what happens. We work hard to elect people, and then we see the same thing out of Washington. And so, as Scripture said, we had high hopes, but hopes deferred make the heart sick. And so we can come to a time like this where our hearts are sick. Our hearts are sick of seeing this nation we love cast aside. We're sick of seeing people go to Washington just to fill a seat and not make change. We're sick of having to fund the demise of the very country we love. But how do we change that? That's one way. It's going to take some courage. Let me tell you, I was in a meeting just this last week, and we were with some members of Congress talking about some of the things that happened and, some of the strategies we were going to take on amendments and what have you. And one of them said, well, if we do that, the left, the Dems, they might call us some mean things. And we can't do that. And I sat up in that meeting and I said, I sure hope we have a lot more backbone, because if we're going to let our policy be dictated by them calling us names, oh my gosh, the country's gone. We got to love this country a lot more than that. It takes people willing to stand up and fight. And here's the thing that I think you need to understand about Washington. It's the spirit that right now it bows its knee to, and that is the spirit of fear. And this is how it works. We have a funding deadline every September 30th. How many of you can tell me when September 30th is going to be this year? Anybody want to take a guess? September 30th. If you know that, you should run for Congress. Because every September 30th, we get to this funding deadline, and it's like, oh my gosh, here we are. What are we going to do? And then the Chicken Little sad stories come out of, well, the whole world's going to crumble if you don't pass this massive omnibus bill that has kickbacks and stuff to all the special interests, massive spending that's going to put our nation in debt, saddle our children with debt. Same thing for the debt ceiling fight when it comes. Oh my gosh, the world's going to crumble. The republic will not survive the world economy if we go a couple days past the deadline. This last year, we came to what was a FISA deadline, and in spite of the massive corruption we've seen out of our intelligence community, still we had people who espoused constitutional beliefs their whole life, ran for Congress as a constitutional conservative, and became the deciding vote to take your rights away and give them the right to search you without a warrant. Why? Well, because we went to an intelligence briefing and the intelligence committee gave us all these chicken little stories. The world's gonna end, something bad's gonna happen. Fear, 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 fear. I asked them, I said, what did you think the briefing's gonna be? I can tell you what it wasn't gonna be. No agency, no intelligence agent, no power in Washington is gonna come back and say, thank you for that authority. We have enough, we don't need it anymore. Our budget is too big, we're gonna return it. No, that's not how it works. They're gonna scrape, they're gonna crawl, they're gonna do everything they can to make sure that they have the power, but it's really our job to make sure that we go to DC and take the power and give it back to you. The glory of the American Revolution was not a great government, it was a free people. And yes, one of our jobs is to keep you safe, but we have a greater responsibility in that, and that is to keep you free. But I gotta tell you, it's not just in Washington. Fear is what can sometimes keep parents from standing up and standing strong and saying, you're not gonna have my kids' minds, you're not gonna have my kids' bodies. It's what keeps pastors from speaking truth in a lascivious culture, sometimes even embracing that culture because they're afraid they might offend somebody. We have got to have people who have the courage to say, we will not bow our knee to fear, or we will lose this republic. What's incredibly incredulous to me about this is sometimes, and especially in Washington, you'll hear this, they'll label fear and they'll give it this amazing designation as wisdom. Oh, well, at a better time, maybe when there's not so much opposition or something along those lines. That is not the right way to go. Scripture tells us God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and love and a sound mind. And look, let's be honest, the United States was not built for the faint of heart. If you want to go somewhere where you can be a ward of the state, if you want to go somewhere where you can throw away your dreams and sit here in the squalor of a state of mediocrity, never being able to have the pursuit of happiness, you can do that. There's plenty of countries for that. But that's not what America was built on. We're the people who take to the skies. We're the people who storm the beaches of Normandy. We're the people who conquer the moon. We're the people who say, give me liberty or give me death. I can tell you one person who gets this, President Donald J. Trump. Because, he's had some great ideas. Some ideas have done really well for the United States of America, but I'll say a lot of people who filled that post have had great ideas, but they haven't had the courage. They haven't had the fortitude to pull it off. We have to be people of courage. Jeremiah 29:11 says this, it says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a hope and a future. What gives me hope at a time like this in our nation, it's interesting that scripture was written when the people of God were going through a very difficult time. And it was a promise that you would make it through the difficult time and that what you had lost would be restored to you once again. I think it's appropriate maybe for the time we're in right now. But with the rest of that scripture, I went and I looked and I thought, what happened between that scripture and when the promise was fulfilled? And that's when you get these interesting stories like Daniel. They literally passed a law saying you cannot pray again. And of course he said, well, if that's what the law says, that's not what he said at all. He said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to throw open my doors. I'm going to pray anyway. Then you had three young people, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, They built an idol and said everybody in the culture has to bow down to this idol, whatever you want to call it in our generation. The absurd that they're trying to get us to accept as normal. They said, we're not going to bow. You can do whatever you want to us. We are not going to bow. And then you had someone named Esther who said, I believe I am called for such a time as this. What gives me hope in a season like this is not only that we have the great ideas, which are so important, they can change and will save our country, but it's people like you who say, we are not going to bow, we are going to fight. I believe you are called for such a time as this, and we are going to join together and do everything we can to make sure that we save this country that we love. God bless you. Stay in the fight. Keep the courage, keep the faith, and may God bless this nation we love. God bless America.